think we already did mention in the whole chat is like transformer models, right? So I think in the last couple of years, or I would even more than that, I would say at least in the language domain, transformers have dominated. And even in vision, like in the last few years, like it has been the favorite child. Like people are preferring transformers at some point over CNN based models for vision tasks. So can you comment more about like, are there any like, have you in your any of the research works that you have done try to investigate these two different architectures? Are there any architectural aha moments that make transformers really successful over CNNs and even out of vision tasks? Like they have been very nice for language based models itself. So what makes, like, what is the nice thing that you have noticed about transformer that make it so much preferable by researchers and industry?
Yeah, so this is a complicated question to ask, that what is exactly pinpoint, like what is the preferable thing. But like one thing that I found very fascinating and something that I've researched on is that they are a very different paradigm of how you connect things compared to like convolution neural networks or fully connected neural networks. Here, there is like this dynamic nature where this thing called self-attention, where a particular part of the input can decide what it needs to focus on. So like this is called self-attention, where I can decide, like this part of the image can decide that it needs to attend to this other part of the image. And this is dynamic depending on what the input is. So, and this is a very powerful tool, because like for many, maybe like for different tasks, you need different parts that need to focus on different parts. So this part called self-attention is like one of the biggest innovations. And there are many other architecture innovations that have come up that have made this idea actually be successful. And I think that is one core thing that I have spent time understanding, that what is new that this model gives us. This kind of paradigm of computation, instead of like having a fixed convolution structure and connecting them together. Here, you're allowing this to have different weights on different parts of the image instead of the same weight. Yeah, so that has been something that has been a new innovation. And then, of course, scaling them up has, generated all these emergent phenomena that you wouldn't see in small models. You see in big models or with larger training time, that you see that they suddenly can do reasoning tasks, things that you didn't actually train them for. They're able to do these things. That's a very fascinating feature of transformer architectures itself. Why they are preferred is because they are very successful, right? You try out, like, this is some idea that somebody came up. It's a very principled idea of generating these attention models, and it really worked well, and it gave a big boost, and that's why it's of interest. And not to say that this is the only model. Like people are coming up with all kinds of new architectures which are modifications of these transform architectures. They are using ideas of previous architectures and coming up with new solutions. So we don't know if this is the final model, right? Like there could be a newer model which has a new clever idea that improves this. Yeah, so that's what I would say. One thing I would point out, like, so I know more on the language side than the vision side. So vision is something that I have not explored that much with, but they're pretty unconventional compared to like traditional language models that we used to have, which were like recurrent RNNs or LSTMs, because they were sequence to sequence models where you would take the whatever input you had some history, and then you would apply the next input and you would process it, so forth. So they were like, over the sequence, they were operating in a recurrent fashion, whereas these transformers are like taking the entire input together and just having a few layers and simultaneously processing this. And that makes it very fast to train compared to the other models. But you're losing this recurrent structure, but still they're able to do these, learn these long range dependencies, understand, like, say, in something that if I'm trying to write like a huge block of text, I need to understand what I meant, like maybe 50 or 60 words before, and it's able to capture that. So that's something that this architecture is really able to do well.
Yeah. Just to add to that, I think I did try a few of the transformer models. One of the only limitations, I think, compared to what CNNs they have is, even with a smaller or limited data set, CNNs are able to perform better, at least the ResNext models and all those kind of models that can model these residual networks based model, versus transformers has the given idea that you need a big data set enough to make it train very nicely. Of course, once you have a bigger data set, it can provide some magical insights into the model or whatever downstream task you are targeting at. And one interesting thing that I other found out that which something not I have worked on, but I know the baselines because I have used the same data sets. And hence what they proved in one of those ideas is the idea of transferability. So if you have a pre-trained model that is trained on a big network, or sorry, big data set, you can fine tune it very nicely to your downstream tasks, which was previously given the rank to CNN models. But nowadays, like, and this is like the imagine it moment for medical tasks, at least, because we don't have a big data set. But let's say if someone has, and if they put up a pre-trained model, it can solve a lot of things. So I was like personally very curious about the idea, what makes transformer architecture really good at transferring these knowledges, because we already know the limitations of CNN models. Label smoothing and all those kind of things don't help you in getting these downstream tasks really accurate. But I'm like personally, like, this would be something I maybe hopefully can do it as a part of my PhD, is understanding what makes it so much nice. So yeah.
Yeah, it's even surprising that in context learning, like not even fine tuning, if I add, I add some examples in my in context, like in the lines. So like say I say that I've already taken a trained large language model, and I just put it as an input. I give it an example of some problem, and I ask it to solve it. I'm not training it again, but it is able to solve this by seeing only a few examples of this, right? So it's able to even learn in that form without fine tuning. And this is great because I guess there's some part of the network that is storing all this information. And when we give it some input, it kind of decides where to focus it on. And now it can like use that to predict. And understanding this is a great thing because this is very powerful. Because you don't even need to retrain your model. You can just, give it the right prompt and it will generate you the answer you want. And there's been a lot of interesting work trying to play around with this and see what the limitations are, what they're able to do. And it's very exciting. Like the viewpoint that I have taken in my research with my collaborators, my wonderful collaborators, is that understanding these very, very large language models with the capacity that we have as researchers and the compute we have, it becomes pretty challenging. So we try to, condense out like what are the things that it's able to do, like, some kind of, say if it's able to do reasoning, how is it able to do reasoning? Like what does it need to do for reasoning, and try to model that as a synthetic task, like look at a very simple problem and see if it can solve that simple problem, which would also require reasoning, and train these models on these smaller synthetic data sets that you can generate as many samples as you want because they're like synthetic. And you can train smaller, more concise architectures and see how they perform, and maybe use that as a diagnostic tool to understand like how they're able to do this. And this can give us insights. So that's like one of the directions that I've been looking at, and a bunch of people in this space have been looking at, where we can use tasks that we know how to solve, but you see how transformers solve them, and maybe they come up with like interesting solutions. How do they learn these solutions, and try to get some theory around that. Because the scales are very different, right? Like we have so much data, we have so much compute, we've like really advanced on these two things, and maybe our understanding of these two things hasn't advanced at the same level, right? Like that what this actually entails, like having that much data fed into a model that can actually process that, like the entire Wikipedia and all the text that you have in the world. Like if it can process that, like the kind of information, the scale that it's running at is so huge that it's probably, something we couldn't even fathom like maybe 20 years ago, that we would ever be able to train these gigantic models. So so I think of this as an exciting thing. Definitely the role of theory always comes into question, that what can theory provide here in this space? But if you actually understand the tools better, you can develop better and newer tools. Like this, you can go back to any example in history where we had the technique first. Maybe we had fire, but we didn't know how to control fire, so we need to control fire, or any kind of tool. So it's always it's a new challenge, and it's pretty exciting, and we are all figuring this out, like how to proceed and how to come up with great ideas. The one thing to always note is that these models are doing well, but they have a lot of problems. And we are seeing these problems surface in all kinds of situations, right? So when there are problems, means there are challenges that we need to solve, and we need to use all the tools that we have to solve this. So I believe everybody should put in the effort from all kinds of different disciplines, and hopefully all of us together can come up with some solution.